So, hello there, and welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. And in this podcast, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing the new Disney film, Haunted Mansion. But just before I do that, I should say what says start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to your podcasts, well, guess what? You can with this one too at Night of Movies on Spotify. And if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of Movies on that platform too. Likewise, whereas maybe watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course. And leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into it. Haunted Mansion. So, this is the new Disney film directed by Justin Simien. I think that's how I pronounce his name. Apologies if it's not. Who previously directed Dear White People, which I saw for the first time a couple of years back. And you know what? I quite enjoyed that film. It was quite good. And he has directed this film. And it is yet another Disney film based on a Disney theme park ride. And I should say, I've never been on the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland. I've never been to Disneyland full stop. I would love to. I would love to one day. I've never been there. But this film is yet another film based on a theme park ride. We've already had Pirates of the Caribbean, and we had Jungle Cruise a couple of years back. Didn't really like Jungle Cruise. Not a huge fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, although I did really like the first, and I like parts of 2 and 3, but I didn't like 4 and 5 really whatsoever. So, you know, they've been a bit hit and miss with their theme park ride movies. But I like the trailer for this film. That's one of the reasons I went to go watch it. I thought the trailers looked fun. I like the cast. You've got the likes of the Keith Stanfield, Rosario Dawson, who's going to be, well, who we've already seen as Ahsoka, and we're going to see again in the Ahsoka TV show coming out later this month, which I'm actually getting a bit excited for, which is saying something, because I haven't seen any of the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show or the Star Wars Rebels TV show, but I'm excited to see her in a role in her own show. So yeah, we have Rosario Dawson in there, we have Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Tiffany Haddish, and we have small roles from the likes of Winona Ryder, Dan Levy, and Jamie Lee Curtis, and even Jared Leto in this film. So, even though I'm not a huge fan of Jared Leto, the rest of the cast got me excited for the film. And the Google plot synopsis for this movie goes as follows. A woman and her son enlist a motley crew of so-called spiritual experts to help rid their home of supernatural squatters. And that is the premise for the movie. That's all you need to know. And honestly, I thought this film was fine. I didn't hate it, and I don't understand how people would hate it. But at the same time, it really wasn't that good. And it's meant to be this horror comedy, and it's just not that funny. And I think that there are certain actors in this movie that are wasted, and I think it's way too long. It should have been 90 minutes. It's over 2 hours. It's just over 2 hours. I think it's like 2 hours and 5 minutes. And you feel that it's a rather unengaging movie, and you can tell that it's based on a theme park ride. And I said that the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie, I said that felt like a theme park ride, but it felt like a good theme park ride. I meant that in a good way, in a positive way, in regards to that film. In regards to this movie, it feels like a theme park ride, and I don't mean that in a positive way. There are a lot of things wrong with this movie, and as a title of this podcast, it's a mostly forgettable horror comedy movie. It really is. However, it has its moments. It has some funny moments. There's a certain enjoyment and entertainment factor of watching this cast. You know, it's quite a comedic cast. There's a lot of comedy acts in there, like Owen Wilson, who's been in loads of comedies and loads of Wes Anderson films, which I particularly love him in. Whenever he's in a Wes Anderson film, that's when I really like him. Don't really like Owen Wilson in anything else, but he's been in many comedies in the past, so has Danny DeVito, so has Tiffany Haddish, and I think Rosario Dawson has been as well. I haven't seen Rosario Dawson in much, but you have a lot of comedy acts in there, which are fun to watch and bring some comedy to the table. I will say, I think the film is badly written, and there's a lot of lines in this film which are meant to be funny and aren't really that funny, but the moments in the film that are funny is because the moments of the film that are funny are because of the line deliveries from the actors. It's not because of the dialogue, it's because of the way actors like Danny DeVito or Tiffany Haddish deliver lines. And that's the same with Lakeith Stanfield, who I really liked in this film, because he hasn't done anything like this in the past, really. He hasn't done anything fun. What I've seen Lakeith Stanfield in the past has been the likes of Judas and the Black Messiah, Get Out, and more recently I saw him in Uncut Gems, and I really like him in those films. He's great in those movies. He has a presence whenever he's on screen that only he brings to the screen. But I haven't seen him in a family movie, in a fun movie, and so it's nice to see him in something else, and he's shown his range in the film. And you know what? He seemed like he had his heart into production. There is a lot to like about the movie. It's not really that bad. It's just not really that good. And the film has three, I don't know if you got it there, three big problems. And problem number one is it's not that funny, which is a big shame to say because it's meant to be a horror comedy. And yet, I chuckled a couple of times in the film, but mainly at actors' deliveries. Not because of anything that was said or anything that was done. I felt that most of the jokes fell flat. And I was in a cinema that was, almost half full. It was almost half full. And there's some people laughing at the jokes, but most of the time, the jokes fell flat in the cinema. And like I said, my cinema had people in, which is the same to me because I watched the film at 10:30 on a Friday morning, and there's a bus strike going on in the area I was living. So I was like, oh wow, didn't expect that many people to be in the cinema. And also this film, I haven't heard much excitement for it, so I was surprised to see that many people in the cinema. But the point I was making is, there was people in the cinema and they weren't laughing that much, and I really think that's a big shame because you have, as I've already mentioned, a lot of comedy actors in this film. Danny DeVito has been in loads of comedies. He's in one of the most celebrated comedies of the past decade in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I haven't seen that show really. I watched an episode a couple of years back. It wasn't for me, but I feel like giving it another go at some point, because I know it's meant to get a lot better, but he's in that, and that's one of the most celebrated comedies of the past decade. He's also been in many comedies in the past, and I love Danny DeVito, ever since I saw him as the Penguin in Batman Returns. But he's not that funny in this film. He's chewing at the scenery, and Danny DeVito is he's basically playing Danny DeVito in this film, but it didn't really work. I don't know. He was good. I liked him, but maybe I just liked him because it's Danny DeVito, and I didn't think he was that funny. Same with Owen Wilson. I'm not sure what Owen Wilson was doing in this film. It really felt like he had a sign on the top of his head saying, I'm here for the paycheck, nothing else but the paycheck. It really felt like that because his character shows up. I'm like, what are you doing here? What are you really doing here? And Owen Wilson, I didn't really find that funny in this movie. I only really like him in Wes Anderson films. I've really started to realise that. I don't really like him in any non-Wes Anderson films, and this film didn't change my mind. Rosario Dawson was wonderful, and there's some funny lines with her. Same with Tiffany Haddish. But most of the comedy is only funny because of the line delivery. Same with Lakeith Stanfield. He has some funny moments, but it's because of the way he says those moments. And I should say here, the cast is full of famous actors, and I spoke about this on this channel not too long ago. Often with movies, I have a problem when the cast is full of loads of famous actors. I spoke about this in relation to Barbie and Oppenheimer, which had those huge famous casts. And I called it the Wes Anderson problem in my podcast on the problem with huge famous casts. I call it the Wes Anderson problem. And this film has a bit of that. In fact, it's got a lot of that. I never was really able to differentiate between the actor and the character in this movie, between the actor and the character they were playing. But that actually enhanced my enjoyment a little bit. And sorry, by the way, if you can hear some leaf blow outside, it sounds like, sorry if there's a bit of sound interference. But anyway, actually, that enhanced my enjoyment of the film because I just felt like I was watching these actors run around a haunted house, and I liked that about it. I felt like I was watching Rosario Dawson, Danny DeVito, Owen Wilson, Lakeith Stanfield, and Tiffany Haddish all run around this house with one another, and I liked that about it. But the point I was making is problem number one is that it isn't as funny as it should be. And it wants to be this great horror comedy. It wants to be on the same par as Beetlejuice and as Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. But in actuality, those films are far better. There's even a point in the movie, and this isn't a spoiler because she's on the poster. She's not on the poster, but I think her name's in the little words on the poster. I don't think her face on the poster. But it's been in the press and everything. She's in the cast list for the film. Winona Ryder has a cameo in this movie in a small role. And when she popped up, I was like, oh, it's Winona Ryder from Stranger Things, which many people know from now, but also from Edward Scissorhands and Girl Interrupted and Beetlejuice. Oh, she was great in Beetlejuice, and that film is so good. I'd much rather be watching Beetlejuice right now. Beetlejuice is a far better horror comedy, and the same with Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. That is a funny film. I don't care what anybody says. I think Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, is a near perfect film. In fact, I think it's a perfect movie. And that film has some scary moments, particularly if you're a kid, and it's also really funny, and that's the problem with this film. Beetlejuice has some scary moments, but it's also funny. Same with Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. But this movie isn't that funny. And it's the same with The Frighteners as well, the Peter Jackson film from 1996. That film has some funny moments, and it's scary at times. It's got Michael J. Fox in there and Dee Wallace in there, both great in that movie. And this film, that's it. This film feels like a light-hearted version of Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. That is an underrated film. I really like that. It's a film Peter Jackson made before he went on to Lord of the Rings, which always makes me laugh. But it's a really good movie and really underrated. And The Frighteners is this feels like a poor man's version of The Frighteners. That's what it feels like. And anyway, I've been going on a bit too long about problem number one, but the point I was making is it wants to be this horror comedy, and it's not funny enough, and it's not scary enough. It's not as, it's not as scary enough as it should be. And I understand that, it's aimed at a family audience, but so is Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And if you're a kid and you're watching that film, and I can speak from experience because this is what it was like when I watched Curse of the Were-Rabbit for the first time myself, it has some scary moments. It has some moments which make you jump and actually are a bit unsettling. You don't get that with this film. There's some far better horror comedies that are age 15 rated or onwards, like Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland, although Zombieland's not 15, but it's aimed at a more mature audience. But the thing is, though, I'm not going to compare Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland in relation to this movie because they're aimed at a different demographic, but you have the likes of Beetlejuice, The Frighteners, although The Frighteners might be a 15, I'm not entirely sure, but you have Beetlejuice, The Frighteners, and Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which have some scary moments, but are also funny, and that's why those films work better. But anyway, going on to problem number two. Problem number two is that the film is unfocused. Much like this review, the film is unfocused, and its main heart and one of the main themes of the film, if not the main theme, is this whole idea of grief, particularly surrounding Lakeith Stanfield's character. And I liked how that was incorporated into the movie, but it should have been in there a lot more. That is the best part of the film. All this stuff with this idea of grief and dealing with losing people, dealing with people who are no longer with us. And I really liked that, and it caught me off guard in the film. I was like, oh wow, this is much deeper than I expected this movie to go. But the problem is, it's only really thrown in there like a couple of sequences, and the rest of the movie is the main characters that we follow running around this haunted mansion and being scared by these CGI ghosts and whatnot. It's not really in there as much as it should be, and it feels like it's forgotten about in even the most important parts of the film. It's there, and it's one of the reasons I actually don't think this film is that bad. It's there, this whole theme of grief, and I like whenever it pops up in the movie, but it's not there as much as it should be, and the film is baggy. There are parts of the film which you can easily cut. This film could easily be 90 minutes. It's the point and tight and far more effective. If you had this film being 90 minutes, or even less for that matter, you would have such a better time with it. I really think you would. But it feels unfocused. It really feels unfocused. And because it's unfocused, it can make the viewing experience feel unengaging at times too. There was plenty of moments in the film where I didn't feel that engaged in either the story, the filmmaking, or what was going on in the film whatsoever. I would be looking around the cinema thinking, I'm not really getting into this. I'm just not really getting into this. And problem number 3 with this movie is that it feels too much like a theme park ride. And I've already spoken about this a little bit, so I'm not going to go into this too much, but it feels like a theme park ride, but not as exciting and as thrilling and as enjoyable as a theme park ride should be. I love going to theme parks. I love going to the likes of Owen Towers and Legoland and whatnot. I love theme parks, and if I could go to Disneyland tomorrow, I definitely would. But the thing is though, if the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland is anything like the Haunted Mansion movie, I don't know if I'd enjoy it, because this film felt like I was walking through a theme park ride. It didn't feel like I was experiencing the thrill and excitement of a theme park ride, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did. That movie felt like a theme park ride, and in all the ways you wanted to. This film didn't really. And it's based on a theme park ride, and at times it feels like the filmmakers and the people behind this movie are almost doing a checklist with things to include. Because I've never been in the Haunted Mansion by myself, is what he said, but it feels like, we have to have this in the film, we have to have this in the film because it's in the ride. We have to have this in the film because it's in the ride. That's what a lot of this film felt like, and it felt like I was walking through a theme park ride. It didn't feel like I was experiencing the thrill and excitement of a theme park ride like I wanted it to, or the enjoyment of a theme park ride. I'm not saying I wanted this to be... I just wanted this to be more exciting. At times I found it dull. And you never want a theme park ride to feel dull. You never really do. And it does have its moments, as I've already said. It's not badly directed, although there were some small continuity errors, but it's nothing too big that. And the sound mixing wasn't great, although that might be because of the place I was sat in the cinema. I was sat to the far left, and I don't know whether because of the way I was sat, but there were parts of the film which I just couldn't hear. Everyone goes on about the sound mixing in a Christopher Nolan film, and how they can't hear the sound in like Tenet or Oppenheimer. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. I understand with Tenet, but not Oppenheimer so much. But whatever. People are going about sound mixing Christopher Nolan movies, and I understand that, but I never really had that problem too much myself. And then I get into this movie, and there were lines of dialogue. I'm like, come again? Can you repeat that? Because I can't really hear. Honestly, it's a sort of movie where if I had a TV remote and I was watching this on streaming or whatever, and I got onto whether I think you should go and watch it on the cinema or streaming a bit later in this podcast, but it's a sort of movie where if I was watching it on TV, I'll be turning it up on my remote because I couldn't really hear it that much. There were some other good things as well, such as the costume design, particularly with Jamie Lee Curtis's character. When she pops, it was like, whoa, that costume leaps off the screen. The production design is really good. It looks like real sets for the most part, and I like that about it, especially a Disney movie nowadays. Disney, when you look on behind the scenes footage of them shooting some of their latest movies, there's a lot of green screen or blue screen. It didn't look like that too much in this movie. I mean, there's obvious moments of CGI, but those moments didn't take me out of it as much as I thought they would. And I don't know why they use CGI so much, by the way. They could have made this movie for half the price they did. Apparently the film cost $150 million to make. It could have cost half that price. It could have cost, half $150 million? If my maths are correct, $75 million. It could have cost that amount and I actually think being more superior. But, it's expansive, and that didn't really bother me because I like the production design, I like the costume design, and I enjoyed performances. Rosario Dawson, as already mentioned, is one of the film, and so is her kid. the character that Rosario Dawson plays in the film is meant to have this kid, and he's really good in the movie, like really good, holding his own against the likes of Owen Wilson, Lakeith Stanfield, Rosario Dawson, Tiffany Haddish, and Danny DeVito, these established actors, and he's holding his own, which is saying a lot. Although, I will say, some of the actors feel wasted. Winona Ryder feels completely wasted, and so does Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis shows up, and you can just tell that she's having the time of her life playing this character. At least, I think it seemed like that when I watched the movie. But she feels wasted. And when you have Jamie Lee Curtis, who was in one of the most famous horror movies of all time with Halloween, and when you have Winona Ryder from Beetlejuice and from, Edward Scissorhands and Stranger Things and whatnot, these, well, maybe not Edward Scissorhands as much, but these staple horror films and TV shows, you expect them to use them a bit more. And when they pop up, it's good. Winona Ryder has one of the most funniest sequences in the film. In fact, probably the only really funny sequence in the movie. But they feel wasted, and so does Dan Levy. Dan Levy literally has a Blink and You'll Miss It cameo. That's what it feels like. And the musical score by Chris Bowers, who I must admit, not very familiar with, feels like it's been ripped off the Haunted Mansion ride. It feels like they've literally taken the score of the Haunted Mansion ride and put it into this movie. And I don't know if they have or not. Not really read anything about the score of this film, but it's way over the top, and it didn't really work for me, the score of this movie. It felt unnecessarily over the top. And yeah, there's some... I don't really know what's going on with the score. I literally felt at times that the score was being taken off the ride. It felt like a musical score you'd get in a theme park ride, and the whole idea of this film feeling like a theme park ride, but not in the way you wanted to. And yeah, I do think this film would have worked better for being at 90 minutes. If it was 90 minutes, I think it would have worked a lot better. And the thing is, would I recommend you go and watch it at the cinema or streaming? I would recommend you watch it on streaming when it comes out, and not in the cinema. I don't think there's a film you have to rush out to the cinema to go and see, although I will say, if you watch it on streaming whilst putting up your Halloween decorations in late October, I think you would get some out of it. Even if you just, missed part of the film and caught glimmers of what was going on, you would get something out of it because you wouldn't be confused. It's not a confusing movie whatsoever. It's really simple to follow. And so, yeah, you could put this movie on when you put up your Halloween decorations in late October. Saying that, why the hell did this film not come out at Halloween? What was the thinking with the Disney executives here? When they decided when to put this film out, they decided to put it out in mid-August. What? That doesn't make any sense. Put it out Halloween. Even if they didn't have much faith in the film, they could put out Halloween and at least make a profit out of it. The film was bombed in North America, and if it's bombed in North American box office, it's often considered a flop. And so this film is a flop now because they put it out in mid-August. Put it out in late October, and even if people didn't really take to the movie then, at least you could make at least maybe a profit out of it. At the moment, I think the film's going to lose money. Why the hell did they not put it out in late October? Because, family audiences aren't going to go and see the new Exorcist movie in October, are they? I mean, I know that's like the big horror Halloween release of this year, if you will, but as far as I know, and this might be me being, this might be me just not knowing what's coming out in late October, but as far as I know, there's no family horror comedies coming out in late October, which a family audience can go and see around Halloween, and get into the Halloween spirit, if you will. And if this film did come out in late October, I think families would have gone to see it. But it's come out in mid-August. Why? Why the hell did they do that? Because I genuinely think some families will get something out of this. Especially if they've been to Disneyland and been in the Haunted Mansion ride. And yet, I don't feel many people are going to go and see this because it came out mid-August. Why the hell did they do that? My only thinking is, they put it out in cinemas now so that it goes onto streaming by October and people watch it on the streaming service on Disney Plus, during Halloween. But even that I'm not sure on. Why didn't they bring it out in late October? Families aren't going to go and see the new Exorcist film, are they? But anyway, As I've already mentioned, this film I didn't hate. I didn't really. I mean, I did dislike it, but I didn't dislike it hugely though. There were parts of the film which I enjoyed, and there were some entertaining moments, and I don't think it's that bad. I think if you watch on a stream service, and you know, even if you paused it or missed parts of it, you would maybe get a little bit out of it. And there were some entertaining moments, and the cast is fun, and I enjoyed watching them. It did feel like you're watching famous people running around a haunted mansion, and you know, even I enjoyed that. So there are parts of the film which are enjoyable, but overall, it's pretty much forgettable. It's pretty much forgettable, and it's not going to be remembered as one of these staple horror comedies like the likes of Beetlejuice and Shaun the Dead are. And it's a bit of a shame to say, because I did think the trailer for this looked good, and it does have its moments. I enjoyed seeing this cast, although I think some of the cast are, if I'm being honest, most of the cast is wasted. But I like seeing Lakeith Stanfield in something fun, and Rosario Dawson was wonderful, and you know, there is a certain enjoyment you can get with this movie. But yeah, it's nothing to write home about, you know. It's a mostly forgettable horror comedy. And that is why I'm going to give Haunted Mansion a 5 out of 10. I'm not going to give it a 6 out of 10 because I wouldn't say I really enjoyed this film. I wouldn't say I even thought it was okay. I just think it's fine. You know, I didn't like it that much. And I think I might have given it a 6 out of 10 or higher if it was 90 minutes. Honestly, if this film was tight and to the point, God, it could have been good. It could have been good. And even if it released in October, late October, close to Halloween, God, I might have been more the Halloween spirit and enjoyed it. But I found it so unengaging. And the funny thing is, it's quite sunny where I live right now. And I walked out the cinema, and the film is quite dark. Like, it's darkly lit. The subject matter isn't really that dark whatsoever. It's more uplifting. You know, it's Disney. It's quite a Disney-fied film. It's all, you know what I mean. It's meant to be enjoyable and whatnot, but the film is darkly lit. And then I came out the cinema, it was like I've been blinded by the sunlight, and that's because it came out mid-August. Why didn't this film come out in late October? I just don't get it. Oh, and one last thing I want to mention. I have to mention this, is Jared Leto. Apparently Jared Leto plays the main villain of the film, and you can tell if you knew it was him, although you also can't. You know, they do a good job with the CGI and the special effects on his character. But all I was thinking was, I wonder if Jared Leto went full method for the role as, what's his character's name, Hatbox in this film. I wonder if he went full method for the role in this movie, because he went full method for the role as the Joker in Suicide Squad, and he went full method for the role as Morbius in Morbius. I don't get it. So I did have a little bit. I laughed at my own thinking in this film. Like, I wonder if he went full method for his role, because his role is unbelievably stupid. It works in the context of the film. It wasn't a negative. That I actually liked his character, but all I was thinking was, when I popped on screen, I wonder if he was method on set, trying to get into the role of Hatbox. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that there. As I mentioned, for me, this film didn't really work. It's got some enjoyable moments, but yeah, ultimately, it's mostly forgettable. And I haven't been on the Disneyland ride, and maybe if I had been on the Disneyland ride, I'd feel differently. But yeah, it's not going to make it's not a memorable horror movie. It's not a memorable horror comedy film. It's not scary enough. It's not funny enough. And that's sad to say, because you look at this cast, it's full of lowest comedy actors, and yet they feel a bit wasted. Cameos feel wasted for the most part. And yeah, there's a certain... You can maybe get some out of the film if you stuck at almost putting up your Halloween decorations late October, but it's nothing really that special. If I was you, I would put on either Beetlejuice, The Frighteners, or Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit whilst you're putting up your Halloween decorations. In fact, don't even put them on whilst you're putting your Halloween decorations up. Just put them on at Halloween. You'll get so much out of it. Anyway, Halloween is ages away. I don't know why I keep mentioning Halloween in regards to this film. It's because this film should have come out of Halloween. This film should have come out of Halloween. Anyway, I've been rambling way too much, and I'm going to say what I've already said in this podcast. I'm going to title this podcast today, Haunted Mansion is a mostly forgettable horror comedy movie, and as I've already said, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, now that is it for today's podcast. If you have seen Haunted Mansion, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Maybe you enjoy it far more than me, and if you did, that's great. I'd love to hear it. I'm always jealous when somebody likes a movie more than I do. And if you feel something to me, let me know in the comment section below as well. And pardon me, if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like, subscribe on this podcast, and look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. Thank you as always for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.